Welcome, everyone, to a joint broadcast with GateWorld.net. My name is David Reed. I am the host of Dial the Gate. Welcome to Martin Gero, showrunner, the fourth Stargate series.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
It is such a treat to have you here, sir. How are things in LA? How's everything going?
Everything's going great. I promised we'd be back with some progress updates along the way, and so we're here to do that and announce a couple of like really amazing key hires that have been on the show for a bit, and then yeah, I'll try to answer as many questions as humanly possible at this very early stage, with my regular disclaimer that the show is still in the early phases, and I'm not being avoidant. I just don't want to promise things that might shift down the road, if that makes any sense.
Avoidant, you're here. We'll take that as a win. Darren, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here with you guys again. Martin, you told us back in November when you announced the show that you were going to stay in contact and give us some updates. And true to your word, you're back here again. We've been, as folks will see in a few minutes, we've been privy to what you're announcing today, and I'm super stoked. I'm very excited about what's coming down the pipe. But we also recognize that as fans, we were kind of brought into this earlier than usual, right? We found out that the show exists a little earlier than we might have otherwise, so we know there's a good long wait, as you've told us.
But I
For
think
people who might feel like the process is dragging, how would you put that in perspective for folks who want to know right now, what's the show?
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, like it's like this is really unusual, I think, because like you guys are involved basically before any key hires were, right? Like we came to you, before we had a writer's room, before we had a production designer, before we had a visual effects supervisor, producers, all this stuff. And so, I think Stargate has always tried to peel back, the curtain a bit and let people inside of like how the sausage is made. And this is happening now in like more of a real time way than I think has ever been done in the show. And I don't know. I think it's fun. I mean, like as just a fan of stuff, like it's exciting. And the fact that we're gonna, you guys are gonna see a small taped bit with our production designer and with our vis effects supervisor. But should we just get to it? Like, should we just start talking about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's meet the first
Okay,
new
great.
member
So
of
I
the
wrote a
team.
little thing just so like I wouldn't mess up because there's
Okay.
there's a lot of it's deep. It's deep. So our first department head that we would like to announce is our production designer, which obviously on a show like Stargate is so so important. And I think we have, I mean, arguably one of the best living production designers working on the show with us. So Nathan Crowley is our production designer. Now, Nathan is an Academy Award-winning production designer whose transformative visual work has shaped some of cinema's most iconic and ambitious films. And that's usually like just a BS thing people put at the front of their resume, but like it's actually true for him. So he is best known for his long creative partnership with director Christopher Nolan, a collaboration that has produced some of the most visually distinctive blockbusters in the modern era. It's just insane. Let me just rattle off a few. We're talking
Yeah.
about Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight, Interstellar, The Dark Knight Rises, Dunkirk, Tenet. Those are just the Chris Nolan ones. Then there's The Greatest Showman. There's Wonka. There's Wicked. Nathan has earned 7 Academy Award nominations for Best Production Designer. The Prestige, Dark Knight, Interstellar, Dunkirk, First Man, Tenet, and Wicked. And then finally won his Oscar with Wicked, which is incredible. And then beyond that, he also received an Emmy nomination for his work on the pilot of Westworld. So this is really his first TV show that he's doing from soup to nuts. Like he's designing the entire season with us, and it's huge. I couldn't be more excited. Like I can't believe it when I say it out loud even now.
That's just extraordinary. I can't believe that. Should we just roll the tape?
Yeah, why don't we roll the tape and then we can talk about it after?
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Let's introduce everyone to him.
Nathan, welcome to the Stargate family. first of all, this is a franchise that's been running for many, many years. David and I are here as fans of the franchise who love Stargate and are so excited to see what you guys are cooking up for the next show. Welcome. How did this come about for you?
I guess it came about through first the producer James Scotch-DePole, who I've known, actually really haven't worked with, but I've known him on and off for 30 years, maybe 25 years, just socially, because we've always been. I used to live in Los Angeles, and he would always work for the Scott brothers, mainly Tony Scott, and I would do RSA commercials. So we ran in different film groups, as everyone does. So, and then through that, he gave me the introduction to Martin, and really that's where it kicked off. And Martin said that you guys were he was going to relaunch the Stargate series, and he needed a designer, and this was a natural progression of my design, as my journey as a designer was to push into world building. I can't do police stations and hospitals anymore.
I'm curious. Stargate is very popular across the pond from us here. How familiar were you with it? How much of it has since been homework for you? And do you feel bound in any way, aesthetically, to what came before, in terms of the conversations that you've had with Martin?
That's a great question, because I lived in Los Angeles for most of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s. And so I was sort of exposed to it because it was a big TV show. You put on the TV, Stargate would be on. So I kind of knew it as a sort of a passer. Best word is a passerby. And there are so many sort of footpaths or branches of this series and how they connect. My idea of design is you have to respect the world it lives in, and thus the fan bases. So you have to keep one foot in. But because we're now launching onto something new, we have to put the other foot as far out as we can. And I think it's essential that we try and push. As a designer, you try and push as far as you can while you keep the other foot in what's gone before. And to me, I'm going to sort of express this as nostalgia, because I think people have a nostalgic view on things. And if you just copy what you think everyone loves, I think you're going to fall into a trap. And I think you really have to try and produce something that appears new but isn't. And I think there lies the challenge. I think that's a really, really tough challenge. And ultimately is actually why I do it, is because if you can find that middle ground where you don't upset everyone, but they're taken away, and you give them a new thing to fall in love with, then I think I've done my task as a designer. And it's very difficult. And Martin, who is all things Stargate to me, acts as a guide.
And it's been great. It's been a great back and forth because, Joe and Brad and I are, so steeped in it. There's stuff that we feel like, oh, that's a third rail. Like, we can't change that, like that, and it's great to have those conversations though with someone who doesn't necessarily have that reverence and wants to challenge. Like, so, there have been many times where I'm like, I don't know, I think it's got to look like this. And Nathan is like, let me just try, and him and his partner, Phyllis, who's been on with us and is incredible. Like, they're so fast also. Their ability to iterate design is really incredible. So it allows for like a great experimentation where you can go way off to the side on something that you would feel like, well, no, that's sacred, we can't do that. But then it kind of comes back to you and you're like, actually, that's pretty cool. And it actually is more reverent than I actually would have done on my own, just like through the process. So it's been so refreshing, and obviously to work with someone of Nathan's caliber who is, treating the franchise with this kind of reverence as well, but, is constantly challenging is so I think that's right. I think it's going to feel like for diehard fans, the show will be recognizably Stargate, but it will feel new and refreshed and not 20 years old or 15 years old, you know?
I would add, on every project I ever do, there's some nostalgia, perhaps not as large as this, but there is a fan base or a nostalgia that you must respect. So I don't think I've sort of come across a project. Maybe I've used a nostalgia for something else to allow the audience to understand what it is. And I think these things are, I don't think I ever not had to deal with this, but maybe not in such a large way.
It's so hard. Also, Nathan's doing an incredible job because like we can't really say anything specific yet. So it's like having like design conversations in the ethereal is like kind of a magic trick. So like kudos to Nathan for being able to articulate what this process has been like.
You guys are anticipating all of my questions in the best possible way. Knowing that I cannot ask you specifics about what this story calls for in terms of its design, we're talking generally about the design language. You're entering into a world that is largely fleshed out, right? There are certain things, the gate first among them, that have an established look. But on the other hand, the previous television shows also iterated on what the feature film had done, updated the gate a bit. It looks a little different. The chevrons are different. It's a little bit larger. So how do you identify sort of which are the sacred cows that you need to sort of honor while you are maybe iterating on the language a bit?
So I would, to be honest with you, in my head, I've parked the Stargate because I know that is a slightly untouchable element. And so I've parked it. And I often do this when you come against elements in projects that a little, you can't find, they're a bit cloudy in your head. So you have to park them and you have to go through the process of finding everything around the Stargate to then feed it back into it. It's such a key element, and the symbols are so key. The way it moves has been determined, but I know it's sitting out there and we've parked it.
We are on the forefront of so many new technologies, Nathan. Is there any piece of technology that you're looking forward to cutting your teeth on with this thing? And what are you excited most about in terms of tools at your disposal?
Well, that's fantastic, because technology, what is my true belief in design is you use everything to create the best image. Our job is to make you believe you're in this place and that Stargate could work, and then you could go through space-time to another galaxy. So we have to put you there. And now we have more technology to do that with. That means, can we make, the task for me is always, can I make you forget that you're watching the TV series and fall into it? So I think I find technology super exciting. And I would say if you rely on one thing only, you'll inevitably, the illusion will be given up. And because we are sort of illusionists, and we have to, and that a lot of that is in edit. So you edit between technologies. And if you start with something very real, like the bookshelf behind you, and then it opens and you go into some digital world, and then you finish with you closing it up, I kind of believe it because I've grounded you. So can we use every tool we have to, one, push the design further? And I think we use everything that is out there without a doubt, or we go and investigate it, and everyone should investigate it. And I think if you're creative, you will try and investigate it for your purpose and how it can improve the image, rather than make it easier. You're not looking to make it easier, you're looking to make it better. And I think, in answer to your question, I love technology. Even though I'm renowned for doing things practically, I use every bit of technology before I make it practically.
Nathan started the day the writers started. You know, like Nathan and Phyllis have been there from the beginning, just so that as the show is building, we're, you know, like our room is just propagated with all this incredible art as it starts to grow, and it's a back and forth conversation. I mean, like, that's what's really incredible is I can say to Nathan and Phyllis are, and just say like, yeah, we don't know exactly. We think it's this, like, what is, I don't know. And it's so many times, Nathan has come back and been like, what about this? And we're all like, well, heck yeah, that's way better than anything we would have thought of. So it just allows this like conversation that honestly I haven't had since the original Stargate, because in the old Stargate, the art department was just down the hallway, And so like, if you were down there, if I was typing, I could just walk down the hallway and be like, I don't know, could we build this? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So it's like, it really does feel like we're connecting to that old energy of just being able to be in constant conversation with the art department, with VisFX, as we start to figure out like, how do we build this, and they're having as much input on the story, honestly, as we are having on the design, just through that conversation.
It sounds like an exciting collaborative process. Let me ask you this question and then qualify it before you answer it. How would you describe the scope and the ambition of this show?
Brilliant. I mean, I would say it doesn't matter to me whether it's a Jarm film, it's a TV series, it's a low budget film. I've sort of been across everything. It's you have to start with the ambition of the whole world building journey, and then really where your budget comes into play is about efficiency in what you actually need to tell that story, and which part of the pie you need to then make and spend your money on which you don't. I think the most important thing is not to waste. And I think sometimes you can, as Martin said, if you're in a hurry and you could be going down the wrong road, and that's where the waste happens. And it happens because you don't realize it. And then you get into an edit room and you end up with problematic visual issues and story issues. And also you end up visual effects having to fix it. And then you lose the believability. Because they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. Everyone has their bit to do to take the audience away. And I think so. It's really, the planning is very cheap at the moment with a writer's room. Me and Phyllis. Phyllis is my wife. She's always worked with me. She's my concept designer. So you have to be efficient. And you just get more. I mean, I'm often accused of doing Jarm films, which I do, but we do them quite economically, or we do them in odd places, or our methodologies are built around spending the money on going places.
The scope of this show is the ones we had the ambition for in the last version of the show, but didn't have the means. And now we have the means, and quite frankly, the time. And so like to be able, like, we haven't even started official, pre-production yet. And so to be able to start pre-production with not only the idea of what we want to do, but the like logistical understanding of like how many sound stages we're going to need, like what locations we're going to go to all over the world. Like, again, just being able to put those tent poles around us early has really affected the ability to like really blow the doors off what the show's going to be visually. What has been so useful is like, when you're writing a show, like you have all the cards up on the board is like, okay, well, this is our season. But what Nathan and Phyllis are also allowing us to do is to create that visually so that we can look at it visually as a season. And so as we start to have these conversations about budgeting and everything, it allows us to be like, oh, well, wait, that's super important. Like we can't, all of the money has to go there and it's got to go there. And then like, okay, how do we make this a little more, manageable? But like, having the season visually at a glance as we're in these early starts of creation has just been truly invaluable on every level.
It's also great fun. I mean, myself and Phyllis, we're having a great time. We speak to Martin, we get on a Zoom and say, what do you think about this? And he often says, you can't touch that.
Come on, that's not true.
It's great. It is great. And I said, well, we did touch that.
Yeah, we're having a blast.
It's tremendous that we got you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much.
Incredible. Thank you, Nathan.
Well, that's Nathan Crowley. Wow.
Man.
Crazy.
Guys, we're back here live with creator showrunner Martin Gero. That was fun. What does Nathan bring to the table that excites you?
Oh my God. I mean, you know, I don't know. Do you have an hour? I think like it's like, you know, the first hire we really did was this incredible producer Jim Scotchtopole, who it's a fun game you can play with him. He's made so many movies, also an Academy Award winner. Um, uh, but he was the youngest member of the DGA of all, like just a storied life and career. And a fun game you can play with Jim is when you're just talking about any movie, be like, Jim, did you make that movie? And it's like 1 out of 4 is like, yeah, he says yes, yeah, I did make that movie, or he at least was like, no, but I was on set, or he has got some stories. So like, just like a universally beloved dude who again just has access to these incredible pockets of talent. And so when he brought Nathan Crawley up, I was just like, oh, yeah, I mean, sure, yes, okay, yeah, it'd be great if Nathan Crawley did Stargate. And
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah.
I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Why not? And then he's like, no, well, just like, let's meet him. And so we had a great meeting. Um, we, the vibe was right and the timing was perfect. And he really loved the pilot. And, and then we just started talking about, what we both thought there was room for innovation for, not just in Stargate, but just like in sci-fi in general. And he got really excited, and I got really excited, and so it's been great. We had done some previs work without him just to like get the show sold. And so I think he mostly wanted to know like how dogmatic we wanted to be about that. And we were like, whatever. But like there was this one ship that I had designed that I was just, or not designed, but like I had helped design and was like, oh, this is the only thing that I just think is so cool. And he was like, okay, okay. And then literally the first image he ever showed me, he was like, look, I know you love that ship. I know you think that ship is so cool. And we can totally do that if you want. But what if it looked like this instead? And it's the coolest. Like that's this first image he showed me. I just show everyone that is involved with the show, and they're just like, or like that we're enticing to like be in the show, and they're just like, damn. And I was like, yeah, the old idea was gone. Like the
Good
second
thing he didn't stick with your idea.
yeah, no, I'm so glad he didn't stick with my dumb idea. So it's been great. And it's like, and again, his wife and partner Phyllis has just been so incredible. And again, like, like I think I said it in that piece, but this is how it's supposed to be done. Like the visuals and the stories are created hand in hand. Like to be able to just go down to James's office back in the old day and just say like, hey, what about this? And Phyllis has such like an amazing sci-fi mind that like, because we come up with these crazy ideas and then they have to like make them into reality. And part of that is like justifying everything in the design, right? Like it can't just be there because it looks pretty. And so like it starts these conversations that are very grounding to a show in a moment where we're not really in hyper detail mode, but like when you're doing the design, suddenly you have to be. And that flow of information and having to make decisions about stuff has just been it's been great. And I know I'm talking about this in like a very opaque way.
Okay.
But it's like it's been great. It's very exciting.
Um, Go ahead, Darren.
Yeah, I just want to ask this follow-up question. Did we hear him right when I think he said that the Stargate was the one thing that you guys had kind of parked? Does that mean that he's approaching this as the Stargate is kind of the icon, the most familiar piece, that's the piece that's not going to change?
It may change a
in the
little. What
production
he
zone?
meant by that is it's like it's so iconic, like we can't start there. Like we're doing all of the other design work first. Like what is the thing what will the room be that the Stargate is in? What is all of that? Like what does it look like? And then once he has a very holistic approach so that like again, we just talked about it, but like seeing the season as a whole visually really informs all of the other parts of it as well, right? So you're not looking at it as like this scene or this episode, but as a season of visual diversity. And so I think we'll all, land upon the right tweak of the design for the Stargate.
Okay, so you're not prepared to comment on which Stargate we're looking at exactly yet.
Oh heavens, no.
Okay, understood. All right. Darren, is this a question for Nathan or is this a question for Martin?
This is we could have asked this question of Nathan just as easily, but it's for Martin. The question is, when you look at Stargate and the way that the new show is going to fit with the franchise that exists, do you look at, I mean, SGU was visually different, right? Yeah. Deliberately took some changes with the style, with obviously the way that it was shot, with the way that it was lit. But granting that, does Stargate have a sort of common aesthetic that you would say extends across all three shows and now to a fourth show?
You know who I think answered this question better than I'm about to is the next person that we were going to announce. Should we announce that person? Let him kind of answer that question, and then we can keep talking about it. Is that okay with y'all?
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to run as if a production designer, a world-class production designer, was not enough. You've got another announcement.
Yeah, so this is the last announcement I'll be making today, and then we can just shoot the breeze. But as important at this point in the process is our visual effects supervisor. And honestly, this guy was like number one choice for me. So we're excited to announce that Mohen Leo is our VFX supervisor. He's an Emmy Award-winning and Oscar-nominated visual effects supervisor. He won the Emmy for Outstanding Special Visual Effects in a Season or a Movie. Love the long title names. At the Emmy Awards for his role as production visual effects supervisor on Andor, which is, I think the high bar for sci-fi right now. Yeah. And on the feature side, he also received an Academy Award nomination for Rogue One, a Star Wars story, sharing that nomination with, among others, the great John Knoll. So, I mean, he's got a long storied history. He joined ILM in 1996 as a technical director and effects animator, contributing to Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Perfect Storm, Pearl Harbor, before leaving to work on Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolution. I mean, like, he's just done everything. So, and he also, this is like a cool, like, asterisk, but I think it's dope. He also created the story for the 3-part Vader Immortal virtual reality series game, co-created, I think, which was so great. So he's somebody that just like has such a holistic view of storytelling and visual effects. And, well, yeah, we talked to him. Should we play the...
Yeah, let's have that conversation. Again, here's Mohen. Mohen Leo, welcome to the Stargate family, sir. How are you?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's a true treat to have you in this fold of people because your work speaks for itself. Anyone who Googles you will be like, yep, this is acceptable. Are you a Stargate fan? How familiar were you with the project or with the franchise before this? I'm really curious.
I mean, I very much remember watching the movie for the first time, and at the time that was one of the big sort of like, sci-fi event movies, and I particularly loved like the combination of science fiction with like, the ancient history and like mythology and all that. But yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this. I mean, it's certainly like a franchise that I've been aware of over the years and have seen how passionate people are about it and how deep it is also in terms of lore and the world and everything. So I'm very excited to dive in.
That's my first question, Mohen. You're stepping into an existing franchise with a lot of material sort of already in the stew. How do you approach as a creative sort of collaborating with Martin and his team and sort of figuring your piece of the visual language or the style, the aesthetic of Stargate?
I think that's I really think collaboration is at the core there, especially with something that is so big, like as a universe, and has had so many, talented people touch it creatively. So really, it's going to be a collaboration between, Martin and Nathan, and then myself to find the pieces that from that are most sort of in line with the vision that Martin has for this project, and then I will take their lead on that. And I mean, I think one of the things creatively also that we talked about that's really important is that in spite of sort of both the sci-fi and the sort of the mythology aspects of the franchise, that we want to create something that is still grounded, that is grounded in reality. Martin mentioned that it is really at the heart of it are like the characters and their story. And I think one of the things that I've always felt with past projects as well is that in order for the audience to really care about the characters and sort of participate in their emotions, you have to make sure that the world itself is believable and relatable. And so I think to a large extent, it's going to be taking all of those like sci-fi mythology aspects, but then grounding them in something that really feels like the real world so that people can engage emotionally with it.
Yeah, that's Stargate.
For sure. There are a host of tools that are available now. Where do you begin when you start your creative process? And what are you hoping to leverage with this team?
I mean, I think for me, to the point of being grounded, I think one of the things that I always try to find is like, what are the things in reality, in the real world, that we can draw on as both as inspiration and as reference, so that even if you create something that is fantastic, that you can always reference back to something that feels relatable and that feels familiar to the audience, that feels like something that is tangible. So I think one of the things I always end up spending a lot of time early in a project is just looking what's in the scripts, looking what's in the artwork, and then really trying to Google and Wikipedia as much sort of like, oh, what are the inspirations that from the real world that we can take into this? Because quite often you really then find like unexpected things in the real world, like details or little mechanics of how something works that can suddenly make something both more interesting, more original, but also just feel more real. As far as the tools go, I think one of the things that I always felt is that you want to ideally have every shot be grounded in something real. So as much as you can, when you can shoot a real location, a real set, that becomes the foundation of what you then build visual effects on top of, because it also allows everyone from the start to really know what you're doing, participating. So the director, the production designer, the director of photography can actually look at the monitor and go like, okay, we're shooting a real location here, and we know that we're going to turn it into something else, something fantastic later on, or we're going to extend a set, but there's intention to what you're doing. When you're shooting it, you're not shooting into a blue screen and figuring out later what you're trying to put there. So I think that is really for me is sort of a foundation that you shoot as much as you can, practically, even if you know that in the end you're going to replace a lot of it with visual effects.
Yeah, and I think as far as like tool set, I think one of the things that we're all kind of aligned on is like we want to use everything. Like we want to use the oldest, tricks from the early 1900s, to like the most advanced stuff right now. And I think I think where shows like this start to get a little trapped is if they get like locked into one methodology, and that's what we want to avoid. We want to use, it's a kitchen sink approach, like whatever the right tool for that sequence is what we're going to do. And I think that's what's incredible about having someone like Mohen is like he's just done he's done so much, and so like knows the drawbacks of even some of these newer technologies and knows their strengths. And so it's just a balancing act, and it's why it's so critical that he's with us so early, like that him and Nathan are with us so early, so that as we're trying to budget and figure out and schedule and everything, all of these decisions aren't being made in a bubble. Like everyone is given an equal voice to figure out what's the best way to achieve the creative.
Yeah, and I think we always start with the creative there as well. We don't start with the technology and say this is how we're doing, and then try to fit the creative into that. It's the other way around. You look at like what are you trying to achieve creatively, and then what are the best tools that we can use for that, and what is sort of the split between what's practical, what's digital, so that really every department can sort of contribute the most and does what they do best.
I wonder if you could articulate a bit more for fans who are don't necessarily know the ins and outs of how visual effects work. When you have two different kinds of shots, right? You're on set, I think largely you or someone from your team for those practical sort of where you're augmenting something with a performer or with a set in it versus those shots that you do, space battles that are entirely CG. What's kind of the workflow for those two different kinds of shots?
Yeah, for the location or sets where you're really, in a real environment, you're shooting that. I think we on set are just trying to make sure that we capture all of the data that we need. We capture all of the measurements and the lighting and everything, so that ultimately later on we can add our digital creations on top of that. I think for something like even there, it's important to be really well prepared. So. Concept art is critical for that. We're doing things like pre-visualization, so like rough 3D models, blocking out what shots are going to be, so that when you're showing up on set, you look at the monitor, you see what's there, but in your mind you have a clear idea of what's missing, what visual effects then still has to do to complete the shot. For the fully digital sequences like spaceships and things like that, it's usually like a close collaboration with the showrunner, with the director, DP. Can often start with storyboards, just trying to get rough ideas. What is the flow of the sequence? And then we often do like explorations with like 3D models. So we'll set up a simple scene, and you can have like a little viewfinder, like just an iPad that you're using sort of almost as a digital camera that you can fly around. You can find angles, you can find shots. And then you start with a pre-visualization team actually to build out the sequence like a sort of like early, PlayStation 2 quality graphics, just like the general flow of it, so that everyone again has like a clear understanding of like, okay, this is the edit, this is the flow of it, and then you can figure out what are the technical pieces that are required to put that together. Either fully digitally, or where do you shoot elements, where do you have to shoot actors or explosions or things like that practically.
And for this franchise in particular, like this is brand new ground, because this show came up in the late 90s and early aughts, and it's like, when we were editing the shows, like there would literally just be a black card that says, space battle goes here 10 seconds, and like those things would have to be locked, and before the cut would be locked before the vis effects were even started, and then the vis effects had to kind of back in to like whatever. So no matter the type of planning, it was always like, the handoff between production and vis effects and editorial was, just always a leap of faith. And so what's incredible now about this workflow is that it's like, it's so early. It's so like everything is decided on. We're not just looking at our vis effects supervisor on set and being like, good luck, so it's for us, like that's and it's about keeping the money on the screen too. It's about like making these decisions early in a way that is sustainable for the show.
There's a certain 32-ton elephant in the room that I want to just touch on a little bit here. You are dealing with something that has a great deal of reverence to many millions around the world. And I am very much caught in between the two worlds of, I want you to deliver what's come before, but technology has advanced. And so it would be criminal to make it look exactly the way it looked before. How do you walk that tightrope, Mohen? How are you going to pull that off?
I mean, to some extent, I think we are figuring that out, certainly with the creative team. But having dealt with similar situations in the past, what's often a good way to think about is not necessarily what exactly did it look like 20 or 30 years ago, but how do you remember it? What is like in your head? You have a memory of what that was, and you're just trying to hit that with now the most advanced technology, the best quality that you can, and that often can then open up sort of enough creative space to stay true to what you did before, but basically plus it out for a modern audience.
We want to capture the feel, that like capturing the feeling of Stargate exactly is more important than capturing the exact aesthetic look. Does that make sense? Like, it's been 15 years, the technology is a lot better, and so I think that's a perfect way of thinking it. Like, how you imagined it when you were watching it is what we want to try to get closer to.
As if you could see it with a greater deal of fidelity than you saw it before? Or are we thinking of, well, in the 60s, they could only do this with Kirk's bridge, and now we're going to do Strange New Worlds with it.
I mean, look, I think even just like Stargate was old enough that it actually was in that moment where it went from standard definition 4:3 television to HD, and it took all of the assets that we had and created needed to get plussed up. They were assets and sets, quite honestly, that were built for a different era. And so we had to go over and with a fine-tooth comb, make it so that when you're now looking at it in HD, and God forbid 4K, at this point, it's got to look great. And so that's kind of like, there's still a stewardship over some of the iconic things in the franchise that we don't want to mess with, but we want to make them as great as you remembered them.
I appreciate that. That's wonderful. More how it feels. It feels right. Yeah. It feels authentic with today's technology. You guys are full steam ahead towards principal photography, I think later in the year. What does it look like from the VFX side? Are you sort of waiting for a lot of this work to be sort of in the can before your team really gets to work, or are you already doing previs and other steps at this early kind of pre-production stage of the process?
We're definitely already part of the conversation as scripts are being developed. I think that is super helpful to be able to sort of see how everything takes shape, to be able to weigh in where potential challenges are or where there's opportunities made to make things more bring the scope even greater. But I think the other thing is that we're starting to work basically with Martin and with Nathan also to play around really with visually with ideas. We're not fully in a previs. We're not at a point where we're sort of cutting sequences together, but we're definitely at a point where we can start putting sort of taking some of the toys out of the toy box and playing around with them and looking at them from different angles.
Yeah, and Mohen's on the clock. So I mean, we're not the work has definitely started. And again, the more we can get done now, the better it's going to be, right? The more runway we give ourselves, the better it's going to be. And the more we can line up with everybody, so that the director of photography, production designers, that the entire crew has a clear image of what each piece needs to be.
I loved your work in Andor.
Thank you.
Are there tentpole sequences in this that you're looking forward to tackling, or is it all of a piece?
There are, but I can't say what they are.
I don't know. I do not want. So that was okay. So there are specific.
There are already things
major
that
moments.
I'm very excited about. Yeah.
What made Mohen stand out from the pack, outside of obviously his incredible credits and all of the amazing shows that he's worked on, is he just there's an innate creativity there. This is somebody that we feel a great confidence, giving him a sequence and saying yeah, go run with this and let's see, come back with something amazing and let's talk about it. It's when you can have a collaborator at this level, part of putting together a team is you just want great people and then empower them to do amazing stuff. And so we're, there are sequences already that we're so excited. I mean, I personally, just as a viewer, I'm I wonder what he's going to come up with. This is going to be so cool. So it's no pressure, but it's so for us, it really is that's we're in a very collaborative and experimental point right now where we can take a lot of big swings and kind of all get on the same page as to that feels right, this feels wrong, as we're kind of refining what we all think the look of the show is going to be. More to come.
Mohen, we're so excited to see the work that you guys are doing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us
Thank you.
giving us a little early teaser.
Thanks for having me.
Martin, so I can't believe this question is about to come out of my mouth. So among other studios, ILM is going to be working on Stargate.
Yes. Yeah.
God.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot for the moon.
It's pretty nuts, you know. And again, like I'm a huge Andor fan. And I just think like the visual fidelity on that show is bananas. Like it just looks so great. And so, you know, just having Mohen, you know, obviously it's a very different show, but like it's the level of creativity and his understanding of how to execute. And again, like having someone in this early, you know, has been incredible for us, you know, just to be able to, like he's saying, we're in the play around stage, which is like something the old show was just never afforded, you know, like, again, like, you know, like you would be lucky if you could even see an asset before it was like rendered in CG. At some point, like I remember we were like not even really ever seeing the HD versions of the shots because like it was just they didn't know how to transport them physically to the office. You know, like it was like that's how old the old show was. So it was so anyway, yeah, it's we're so lucky to have these two on, and these are the two I can tell you about right now. You know, we're slowly expanding as we ramp up, and but you know, again, for us, it was critical that the show be, if we're gonna do a new big version of it, that it be afforded, you know, like this level of talent to help bring it back, and so we're just thrilled.
It's just wild, man. Darren?
I'm blown away by the news. I mean, both of these guys, it's like if you had your wish list,
Right.
who would you go after? And I'm hard pressed to think of any two better picks.
Yeah, truly. I mean, like world leaders making historically great stuff that have left a huge imprint on the media landscape, and so for them to be lending their talents to us for the next couple of years is just like really incredible. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. Can we pivot for a little bit?
Yeah, please.
Is there someone that you wanted to bring in?
I did. I want to, if it's okay, this is a writing room day. And so we are writing after
well, I want to ask how the writing room's going.
One of fan favorite Joe Mallozzi is here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gero. Sorry to interrupt. Didn't the other writers in the house are wondering if we could start working on our scripts now?
No. Well, how many coats? Come in a little.
We played at the house last week.
Okay. All right.
Good to see you, Joe.
Hey, welcome, Gero.
We'll have to be closer, just both for the mic and this split screen.
Hello.
Here, just take your absolutely.
Hello.
And representing Omni Consumer Products, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
Joe,
how's it been going?
Yeah.
It has been going great. Actually, I must say, I'm very impressed with the way Martin runs the room.
Oh, wait a second.
No, seriously. He is very welcoming of all ideas, and you know, there's, you know, first of all, coming into the room, I was kind of anxious because I didn't know any of these other writers, and there's always like that one individual in the room who's always kind of the eccentric or the kook. And yes, originally I thought we don't have one in this room until I slowly realized it was me. Yes.
If you can't figure out who the eccentric one in the room is,
but I have to say,
it's probably you.
We have the writers, and then we also have support staff. We have, you know, script coordinator and assistants, and everybody is welcome to pitch their ideas, and you know, best idea wins as always. And so I have to say, I've never seen, this is a first for me to be in a Martin Gero led writers room, and
Well, I learned from the best because I was in a Joe Mallozzi led writers room. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to say surprised, but I want to say I'm pleased. I'm really pleased, and I'm loving my time here. I'm loving what we're creating. I think Stargate fans are gonna love the new show. Is all I can say. And I'm actually kind of sorry to leave because I'm going to leave in a couple of weeks, head back to Toronto, and deal with stuff back on the East Coast, but I will
no more
miss
free
these
lunches. You're gonna have to zoom in.
Oh, it'll be sad, sad.
Guys, has it felt, and Joe, I'm particularly looking for you on this. Has it felt like the alchemy from Bridge has translated into this space? Or is this something completely new?
No, I feel like the magic is still there. And this is one of the things that Martin mentioned to me, I think after the first week, and he was like, isn't this wild? Doesn't this feel wild? Coming together again and creating a show and coming up with story ideas. And it is at the same time, it feels very new and very exciting. Yet at the same time, there's a familiarity there just because it's Stargate, right?
Yeah, and we're trying to obviously we're trying to put our own stamp on it. Like we're not doing a direct photocopy of what this show was. It's built for a different era. It's on a streaming platform versus, like doing 22 episodes. So the storytelling is slightly different, but it's been great to have Joe here as I obviously he's worked on even more Stargate than me, but I think it's great to have somebody that is I can look to and be like, I don't know, are we fucking this up? And oh, sorry, and,
You're okay.
and saying oh no, are we messing this up? And him being like, yes, and also no, to know that there are lines that we should be pushing, and there are some that we should not, and balancing the right tone constantly, and we got into a problem on an episode, last week where it just wasn't working, and we were just like, well, let's how do we make it more Stargate? and in doing that really found the solution, I think, on how to bring that episode to life. And so and look, it's a first season show, and so we're going through the ebbs and flow, high highs and low lows of oh, we nailed it, and then being I don't think it's there yet. So it's just but it's been, again, just such a blast.
Yeah, I'm heartened by the fact that Martin is very respectful of what came before. So we'll build stories, and it's very easy to, let's say, find a solution that runs counter to canon. And there will be times when we'll go a certain way, and then I'll point out, actually, SG1 established this. And rather than kind of hand wave and say, this is a new show, Martin has said, okay, that's how we have to, we have to consider this and find a way to, work around it or incorporate it.
We've been on GateWorld a lot. we've been using the Omnipedia a great deal, just because
Excellent.
we're well, wait, what are the rules with that, specifically? And then hilariously, because it's been some time and we both wrote a lot of them, every now and again one of us will have written the episode that has the solution that we need, and we're like, oh yes, what a great.
But what's crazy is, I love him saying, I'm the guy, the kind of the keeper who will remind people of, this, we did this and we did that. But half the time, I honestly don't recall what I even wrote.
There's a lot of stuff in there. I'm curious, guys. Martin, you brought Joe into this space here. We know he's helping you as a producer. Are you prepared to say if he's penning any episodes?
I don't know what I'm allowed to say about that. Mostly just for guild rules, but he's gonna write a script, so it's absolutely. So it's just but yeah.
Okay, that's great.
That's great news.
All right.
Are
Gero?
there any other obstacles that you guys have encountered in it? I wonder, right? You've got the Stargate knowledge, you've got the resources and the back history, but you also have a room full of people that you're bringing along. Whether it's walking the wrong way through an open wormhole or other sorts of creative obstacles, anything that you've sort of had to help the new team along with?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was reading an outline the other day where someone like went through the gate and then like walked back and said, "Oh wait," and I was like, "Oh no, you can't. Once you're through, you're through." So it's like small stuff like that that like we can't expect everybody to know like the exact inner workings of like every part of the show, but like they have watched a tremendous amount of it. The room is like really educating themselves, but also like I think it's important like I really didn't watch any of it when I was, my first year on Atlantis. And it was a tremendous benefit, I think, because like Atlantis was a spinoff. There was going to be some new audience there. And it was great to, I think, I mean, it was great to have someone in the room that'd be like, I don't understand what you're like, what does that mean?
Completely agree.
And then
Yeah.
to just know
For
where
sure.
like we have a right, I won't single her out, but we have a writer in the room who's not like the biggest sci-fi fan even, and I can just see all the life like drain from her face when we're talking about like deep lore canony problems, but like it's on us to figure out like how do we say that in one sentence now? Like we'll talk about it for 2 hours to try to get it right, but then like what is the one sentence
Yeah,
version of the
because
show?
it will
Yeah.
be, a large part of our audience as well.
Huge.
So, we want to appeal to those viewers, and she's perfect in that respect, in that she'll say, well, now we're getting a little
Yeah.
in the weeds here.
Yeah.
How much of the time are you guys balancing in the writer's room with discovering and incorporating new ideas, and how much is figuring out how to like execute your overall plan as the creator of the show?
It's impossible to kind of like put a number on that because like
Yeah.
what the show is constantly evolving. Like it's so much new ideas. The show that uh we thought we were making even 4 weeks ago is has changed dramatically. Like we're
Wow.
in that time now where the show is allowed to change a lot, like where we're both in the design process and in the in the writing, because like this is the time where it's the easiest to make to change your mind, right? Like the
Mhm.
deeper you get into a process, like it's like working with wet cement, like it's like at this point, like it's just all sloopy and wet, and like we can kind of put it anywhere and we can build whatever shapes we want, and it slowly starts to harden where like you get to a point where you're like you can't change that, or like it's the amount that you can change starts to dwindle. So like for us, it's very freeing to be like okay, this is for sure it, then to like talk about what that ending is, and then being like, I don't think we're earning that, or I don't think we're getting the right place there, is like like the balance of character and story and mythology and like all of this stuff, like it's just all like we're all figuring it out. I don't know, I don't want to sound like we're being wishy-washy, like we're spending, but it's like this is the time where we should be failing and failing often so that those like we want to stress test these ideas. And again, Amazon's been amazing too, because like it's a real split there between diehard fans and people that have never seen the show before. And so like we need the show to hit for both of those partners as well. So it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, conceptually though, we're still operating within the framework
Oh, yeah,
of the
absolutely.
of the show that Martin sold everyone on, that got everyone excited. So, we're operating within that sort of creative framework.
Yeah, the pilot has remained unchanged. The characters have remained unchanged. Most of their arcs, honestly, have remained unchanged. It's just like how best to tell this story.
Okay.
That's great. So schedule-wise, does this mean that it sounds like an environment with a great deal of creative freedom to sort of mess around and play with it, but at some point it sounds like you guys are going to hit a spot where the concrete starts to dry. Do you have to have basically the whole season kind of set, locked down in terms of your scripts before filming starts, or do they kind of overlap a little bit?
Yeah, ideally we'll have it all written before we start filming. That's our goal at least. And then
One of the reasons
obviously
that
things change as you do pre-production and the physical realities of the world, or you need to put this scene somewhere else and for this actor and stuff like that. There's writing until it's all the edits are locked, but the most of the scripts will be done ideally before production.
yeah,
I've got
I ask because you guys have told us many stories over the years of sort of finding, for example, a character's voice once it's been cast and we've got a couple episodes in the can and you start writing for the performers. Is that kind of a more of a season 2 thing with a streaming show like this, given the
No, because
timetable?
that is the type of writing you can do once all the scenes are locked. Does that make sense? Like it's like you are able to finesse voice and finesse, like all of that. And also we hope to have our, writers cast before we start shooting, or sorry, the actors cast before we start shooting the show. And so like that process also informs a great deal of that. But yeah, no, it's definitely still allows for that. Again, the show is not done being written until the final edit is locked. Like there are revisions constantly.
awesome.
That's good. So it can still be kind of a living organism.
Absolutely.
We've got some fan questions for you guys. If we can pepper a few in here.
Please.
Stargate Seed would like to know, Martin, regardless of the number of episodes in the season, do you feel that you have the flexibility if the spirit takes you in the story, or Joe for that matter, to do a 90-minute show? Or are you shooting for around a specific period of time for every episode with a specific number of acts?
That's a really awesome question. I think the answer is yes, but like, we'd have to figure out a way to pay for it, right? So
Yeah.
it's just a question of like we have a set amount of money every season. There's a certain amount of time that we have to deliver for that certain amount of money. And so anything above that is like on us to like make room for. So if we, I don't think right now there's like a 90-minute episode. There definitely are some longer ones and some shorter ones, but also like, we're trying to make it relatively consistent, like the old show.
Okay. Darren, do you have
Lots
one?
of excitement in chat on GateWorld about Mohen and Nathan, what they're going to bring to the look of the show. Also, lots of folks asking how I can be involved in the show. If I want to be an extra and I live in London, is that part of the
I actually
process
don't
going
know.
to be
I'm sure there is a
accessible?
way. I actually have no idea. That's a great question. Let me figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
'cause there's a
imagine if you're
huge number.
connected to the community in the UK that there's some sort of casting call goes out at some point.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe they are union positions, so I don't know that like anyone can do them, but I honestly don't know. I don't know.
Okay. John Morganier wants to know, around when do you want to begin casting? Like how far are you away from your preliminary stages of casting?
We are in the preliminary stages of casting.
You are? Okay. Very good. All right. Could we begin to hear some announcements by summer, perhaps? Or you think it'll be a little bit later? Or is that even not under consideration yet?
Oh no. Yeah, it's I don't want to get specific with dates on that yet,
Yeah.
but we like to get like that stuff leaks very quick for some reason. So we definitely want to, you'll hear it as close to those deals getting done as possible.
Okay.
Got a couple of people asking, can we get a project title or working title, or is it just SG4? Is it just Stargate for now?
It's just Stargate for now. I actually kind of just like the title Stargate right now. Like, again, because we're trying to lower the bar for people that maybe haven't seen all 350 episodes of the last show. So there's something punchy and great about just Stargate, but we don't, again, that's all in consideration right now.
Okay. I had one and it's gone now. Jack Greenberg, are romantic relationships going to be a consideration in this first season, where you're building whatever group of people are going to be built for this thing?
Jack, are you asking me out? The answer is yes. 1,000 times yes.
I assume there will be behind the scenes romances.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a show about characters. It's a show about it's an ongoing show, and it's a serialized show. So I think it's fair to assume that that will be part of it. Like that, it won't be part of everyone's story, but it will be part of some people's story for sure.
Yeah.
Will it be? Will there
the alarm, because I know fans always will fixate on one thing. We're going to be exploring various aspects of the various characters and their interrelation. So that's one part of it.
It's not the centerpiece of the show.
Yes.
At all. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about.
But they're alive. But they're like living,
Yeah.
breathing humans that are having relationships. Yeah.
Is it going to be joint military and civilian again, or are you not prepared to comment on that at this stage?
I don't want to comment on that at this stage.
That's fair.
Let me ask Joe, as somebody who worked so tirelessly for the fans and reviving the show, if you have general impressions about not only is it happening, not only is it in good hands, but you're in that writer's room participating in the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, because for the longest time, whenever fans asked, is Stargate coming back, it was a no-brainer that it would come back. And I always said sooner than later. And it turned out to be a lot later than sooner, to be honest with you. It couldn't be in better hands. One of the things that I kept on saying throughout in the lead up to the launch was that no matter who's in charge, as long as they respect canon, as long as they respect fandom, the show will be great. And having Martin in charge and pursuing his creative vision for the show is really the absolute best of all possible worlds. First and foremost, because he's
gonna see if I have any money already.
He's a veteran of the franchise. He respected.
Talk about this aspect of it.
He respected the franchise enough to reach out to Brad and I very early on, and we were the first ones to read the script, his pilot. We gave notes, and we were involved very early on. We were rooting for him, and then for him to call us up and finally say, he got the green light, was very, very, very exciting. And then for him to bring me in as part of the writer's room, I'm incredibly appreciative of the fact that, he brought me in because, I know a lot about the franchise.
But that's not why.
But also, I appreciate the fact that, you recognize my talent.
Yeah.
To a certain
No, I mean,
degree.
Joe's an incredible writer. Like, it's like you're, as a showrunner, you're at least listen, every showrunner is different, but like, I would love to do the least amount of work possible, and not in a, not in a bad way, but just like, it's just like, there's so much to do. Like, as a showrunner, there's not enough hours in a day. And so like, Joe just sent me an outline and it was just great. And like, when you read something like that, you're just like, great. This is like, I can now spend my time on other stuff that like, I don't have to just rewrite Joe. So it's great. Because again, there's a chemistry here that like has always worked. And also Brad's not physically here, but like, that is kind of my high bar water test. And like always, like Brad just sent me a bunch of thoughts on some outlines, and it was like, just so glad that it's working with him, and that he had incredible notes that I thought were really, really smart. And and they're he's a showrunner too, so like he understands like where to note, where not. Like he's like, I know this is a pain in the ass, but like you have to do this, and you're like, I don't know, and then you think about it for 2 minutes and you're like, oh no, he's absolutely right. I got to do that. So it's like So it's just been it's been very fun.
Aaron Michael Reed wants to know, have you selected a composer?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right. Darren?
Who is already writing music, which is really fun. Which is
Really?
like, yeah, because we, like, again, like for the, we have the time. Let's get it, like, let's take it. Like, our goal is to have like 4 hours of music about written before the show starts shooting. One, so that we can
Wow.
like vibe the cast and crew out with like what we're going for, but also editorially, how this, you may or may not know this, but how it works usually when you're cutting a show, you use temp music, like you use
Mhm.
music from other shows just to like give the idea of what it would be like. And that's useful, but then people kind of get very used to the temp music. And then so the sound of the show starts to like essentially just be a graft of what was used in the temp. And like, so to be able to use original music for our temp music and editorial is just really exciting.
That's
Okay.
cool. I apologize. Somebody mentioned Buffy earlier. I apologize. I don't know who the name was, but Sorrow Loop asks, how can we fans support the show at this time? So many things are getting canceled, like the new Buffy reboot. Is Stargate safe, or is the show going to happen? And how
Yeah, I
can we
mean, look,
support it?
it's a wild industry, so like I can't 100% guarantee that everything is going to go as planned. Buffy is a very different situation because they were making a pilot first, and then
Ah,
everyone was going to evaluate based on the pilot whether to go forward in the series. We're not doing a pilot, we're just doing the first season all in a row. The things you can do to support Stargate is to just keep watching Stargate, honestly. Like that really is it. Like the metrics and also sharing your excitement after announcements like this, like just staying active online is like all of that is being monitored now through various crazy smart AIs just about fan engagement. So just do what your comfort level is of just like engaging with the show and your excitement about the show. That's really it. And eventually watch.
well, sure. Sarah Venerde, can you speak any more to Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich's involvement?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like they're executive producers on the show. Like I've talked to Dean. We hope to have Dean into the writers' room. They're not. I don't know what I'm allowed to say, quite
Okay.
honestly. But they're definitely executive producers on the show.
Okay.
And when I say like I don't know what I'm allowed to say, I realize that sounds like opaque, and it's just like how information is doled out and when it is doled out is kind of not up to us. So it's not a dodge as much as it is like I just don't want to relay information before the time.
Yeah, this is very different for me. Throughout Stargate and my own show Dark Matter, I was very um, open with the fandom and taking photos on set and just all the way up to through pre-production and production. Whereas here I have to be very careful. I was going to take a picture of my double fried mortadella sandwich the other day, and I'm like, oh no, I can't even do that because what do the photos have the geolocation on them? So uh, you know, very
Yeah,
different.
there's a whole process to that for sure. So, um, where was the one that I and it's gone now. Darren saved me. I just had one and it's missing.
Yeah, I'm just folks are really excited. We're
Right.
we're seeing some questions that we asked you on the last stream. I think that I know it's probably too early to speak to, but for example, Nemesis ST, can we pitch an official Blu-ray release for the shows to Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, I would love a 4K, steel box.
Yeah.
It is rare in streaming, like because they ideally would love you to watch it on the platform. But it does happen. So, it's not out of the like Stranger Things is about to release their entire
Mm-hmm.
series,
Right.
as a box set. So it really is gonna. I mean, that's honestly up to the fandom. If that's something that the fandom, demands, then I mean, I think that's a conversation that can be had. But it's atypical, certainly.
Okay. FIA 9896. Can we expect the same balance between technobabble, drama, and comedy?
I think so.
Yeah. I think so. Definitely the humor is there. So, fans can, rest relieved that we're not going to be going, super dark like a lot of sci-fi shows. I mean, the Technobabble, we try to, like we tried to do in SG1, we really try to ground it as much as possible and in at the very least theoretical plausibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Bryce or Zibrek asks, to what extent does this new series need to draw from MGM's archives, like Star Wars has done, in order to retrieve information from earlier series, such as props, blueprints? How have you guys dealt with the sort of archival process of coming in, 10, 12, 15 years later?
Well, it's real tricky because MGM was not like the movie was actually made from Carloco Pictures, right? Which then sold it to various places to distribute. But so a lot of that like library type stuff is like strewn all over the world. I think I'm allowed to say this, but like I just was like we couldn't find blueprints to the Stargate. And so I emailed these guys. It was just like, hey, do you guys have the blueprints of Stargate? And David was like, yeah, I can get them to you right now. And just took all the photos, and then we just sent that to Nathan and Phyllis and everybody. So it was like, honestly, you guys have been, I swear to God, we use GateWorld every day. Like it's just like that really is, I think, the gold standard right now as far as like what exists or for where information is and who has what.
All the more reason. I mean, hey, it's one of those things where it's like, they want my help in getting it right. Well, damn, I'll help. Of course, It's awesome.
I mean, Nathan just asked. He was just like, "How big is what is the exact measurements of the Stargate?" And I was like, "I don't know. That is like, I don't know the exact measurements, And so it's like just great to have that archival stuff, so we can just make sure that our Stargate isn't like, it's like, you idiot, this was supposed to be 22 feet. It's 22 inches, That would have been
Yeah, there's only 6 chevrons. What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. It's just the Spinal Tap. Stonehenge comes down on set and it's just this big. We're trying to avoid those mistakes.
Man, yeah, no, that's one of those things is like at one point in the show, it's mentioned, I think it's 22 feet in diameter, but it's actually, I think, more like 20. So even the show was like fudging it a little in terms of real life. Darren, do you have any more before we wrap it with these guys?
You mentioned one of your writers earlier. Ocean Stars is just curious, are there any female writers on the team?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Are there any, Hannah K wants to know, are you looking at building any props, like mock-ups being built at this early stage, or is there anything physical that's being created at this stage?
Not yet. Typically that stuff gets done in and around 10 weeks, before production. And so we're further than that out at this moment.
However, we do have concept work on some stuff that is absolutely wild, amazing, really amazing.
Yeah.
All right. There was one that I really wanted to add just as a fun. Where'd it go? Oh, Red 5 Red. Are there going to be any Wizard of Oz nods that you hope to add to this season?
Oh. I think I've generated a list once of like the top 10 Stargate in jokes, and we may see a few of these in the new.
Does Nathan count? I mean, Nathan was the Oscar award-winning art production designer for Wicked. So does that?
Yes.
Would that at least we're merging the worlds? Yeah, canonically
Makes sense to me, for sure.
That's great. Nathan is the Wizard of Oz reference for the day.
Yeah,
I love it.
Guys, thank you so much. Any final thoughts?
No, we're just so excited, and we just like thank you honestly to everyone. We're not responding to like every DM and every comment on everything, but like we see them and we feel them, and we're mostly just like what we're trying to show is like we're trying to honor and elevate, like honor and elevate, like that the people our excitement is spreading, and the people that we have been able to infect with this excitement as we're pulling in, to put some respect on Stargate's name and like really do a show that we all know that we're capable of doing, that the fandom and the world can enjoy.
Wow. Thank you so much. It means the world to have you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And more soon.
Yeah.
Good. Joe, you got to work on an apology for Sharky for taking him out of the warm climate.
Yeah. He's loving it here. Actually, he's not the only one who's gonna miss it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, no, I got to go for a walk with them the other day, and he's having a good old time. He was a good little boy. Good to give him some kisses. So please take care of him, Joe, and you guys take care of yourselves.
I think it's important to point out that Sharky is a dog.
Yeah.
For those that don't know.
By the way, Kevin keeps pushing. Is there a possibility for Sharky to have like a cameo on the show? And I'm like, well, it's still too early to tell. But he's very.
It does look very alien. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right, thank you, everybody.
Too early to tell, but yeah, I'm getting furling questions daily.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Be well.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
I'm just going to close this. Is that the right thing to do?
Be my guest. Yeah, I'll switch modes here.
Bye-bye.
So, bye-bye. All right. And boom. Check that out. Wow. What do you think, man? Was that just not a wild download? And to get to see Joe as well?
Yeah,
so
that was a pleasant surprise. Really thrilled. And I'm, again, still just blown away by Nathan and Mohen, what they're going to bring to the show, what they're already working on that they talked to us about.
Yeah, it's... I think we have an embarrassment of riches on our hands here because you could switch them out with a couple of other, folks that I can think of, but you wouldn't get like better quality. You would just get different, like apples and oranges. The fact that they've got these two industry vets in such key roles for this, I cannot wait to just sit down with them and talk with them about their careers and about their process of creating, because you have so much legacy experience just with the two of them combined. It's a dream come true to have them involved in Stargate. I'm really excited. So,
yeah, guys, we appreciate you being here with us live. Oh, except my chat just disconnected. Please wait. Okay, now it's reconnected. YouTube, you do your thing. Thanks, guys, for being here and hanging out with us. We've got a few more minutes, I think, between me and David, if you guys want us to talk about any of this. I want to continue to debrief a little bit of what we just heard. It's really kind of fun but challenging, as folks are probably figuring out, to walk the line of these guys are here. There are as much of an open book as they can be at this stage in the process, but we also recognize we can't ask them certain questions yet. They're just not going to be able to tell us. So
That's
as much as we would like to pepper them about questions of, is this actor going to come back? Is this plot thread going to be revisited? Those answers, I think, are going to come in due time. But I feel like they're being absolutely as transparent as they can be at this early stage of the process.
That's right. You could so easily go with the approach that, well, this is going to be a total media blackout until episode 1 gets released. And I don't think that that's going to be what's going to happen. I think that they're just very strategic about doling out specific pieces of information, because they recognize that this is something that has to be handled with care and consideration, considering what it represents to all of us. So when we go in saying, where's this piece of information? Why can't we have this piece of information? We have to accept the fact that it's because we, collective we, have such great reverence for this, and they, collective they, creating it, do as well, that things are going to take the amount of time that they're going to take. And I've certainly had conversations with you about this, Darren, offline. The fact of the matter is we've been waiting, 15 years for this thing. What's one more?
Well, knowing that it's coming and knowing that we get to have conversations with the people who are making the show on a regular basis is, I already feel like Stargate's back. I want to watch the show for sure. But
Mhm.
we're going to spend a lot more of the year, right? Even when the show is, maybe it gets renewed for a second season and they go back into writing scripts and production. Most of the weeks out of the year are going to be without a new episode. So
Mhm.
just the fact that that there's something in production, it
Yeah.
gets me excited. I don't
Yeah.
know how else to say it. Lori Steinley in the GateWorld chat wants a recap because she wasn't here when we started. So the two big announcements that we got from Martin Gero today is they've hired a couple of big department heads. Stargate's new production designer is Nathan Crowley, who did a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies, right? He did Prestige, he did Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. He did Interstellar, which is one of my favorite science fiction films. And he recently won an Oscar for Wicked, for the production design on Wicked.
Mhm.
And then the second announcement we got is Mohen Leo from ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, is going to be the visual effects supervisor on Stargate. And he's got some Star Wars in his background. He did the second and third Matrix films and then came back to ILM and was a visual effects supervisor on Rogue One and worked on Andor, was visual effects supervisor on season 2 of Andor and won an Emmy for that. So
Yeah.
amazing, right? You couldn't ask for two sort of higher caliber creatives.
No, I completely agree, and just tickled, man. All the way back to Phantom Menace. It just goes on with these guys. There's so much institutional knowledge that's in place here. This is an embarrassment of riches, man. What do you have going on for GateWorld that people should be excited about? What do you need help with? And what's going on as we spin up the excitement on our sides for the fourth show?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot in progress. I went a longer period of time than I intended to between videos, in part because I was working on a really big video that was taking a lot of work. That was the Four Great Races, and so now I'm trying to work through my backlog. I have like 4 videos at different stages of production. So what we need from fans over at GateWorld is to keep showing up. GateWorld has a new Discord if you want to join the Discord and chat with us there. And then if you've got skills and talents that you think is going to help kind of elevate our game
Mm-hmm.
for GateWorld or for Dial the Gate, if I can speak for you,
Mm-hmm.
we are fan run productions, and we're looking for other folks who've got talents who we can help to showcase.
Yep. Specifically for me, I'm looking for a couple of things. We shot a video in December that needs a great deal of help with motion jitter, and anyone who has video editing experience who's really good at taking some shaky cam and making it look like smooth as silk, please get in touch with me. Dial the Gate Show at gmail.com. And if you have some,
Yeah, we could use editing work for sure.
yes,
We've
for
also
sure.
got a couple of interviews from our trip to Vancouver in December that need editing.
There's a couple left, and then that's pretty much it. The other thing that I need help with is I need someone with some web HTML expertise. I want to make our trivia episodes from past Dial the Gate shows accessible to fans. And I want you to be able to sit there and play it in real time and have them disappear and then reload another one, and also have a leaderboard as well, to basically just looking to completely revamp for a 2.0 look on dialthegate.com. So if that is you and you've got the time and you want to work closely together, reach out to me, dialthegateshow at gmail.com. And Darren, where do people go if they want to help you?
You can go to gateworld.net/contribute, or you can just email me, webmaster@gateworld.net.
Sweet. There we go. Awesome.
Martin asks in the chat, have you heard any news lately on additional Stargate merchandise licensees? That would be a good one to ask Martin. I kind of wonder how much Martin is going to end up playing the role of sort of franchise shepherd, who, might be looking at some licensee stuff and approving new products down the road, at least stuff that's connected directly with his show. I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but no, I haven't heard any new licensees. We did just get the news yesterday that Master Replicas is releasing their 0 Point module. That's exciting. Read more about that on GateWorld.net. Otherwise, I haven't heard of any new licensees set up. Say again.
Is that live on GateWorld? Oh, there it is. Okay, it wasn't earlier.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
perfect. Very nice.
I predicted that probably by the end of the year we were going to get some new licensees announced for the franchise. Just knowing that if anybody wants to get stuff out to customers by the time the new show premieres, then they're going to have to sign a license and get working on their stuff pretty soon. So I'm hoping we get some new licensees sign up.
Yeah. Merchandise, please. Take my money.
Give me goodies.
Yeah. And we had the new announcement about the Stargate cruise setting sail in 2027. So that's going to be fun. Richard Dean Anderson, Amanda Tapping, Michael Shanks, Paul McGillian, Rachel Luttrell. So have you cruised before, Darren?
I have. My wife and I did an Alaska cruise for our 20th anniversary. So the Caribbean cruise was next on our list for sure. To have a Stargate convention while we're at sea, that's about as good as I can think.
That's it. Yeah, I've already booked my ticket, so got a room and ready to rock and roll. So hopefully we'll be seeing you guys there on that one. So all that information is, I think, is it Gate Cruise? What's the website?
Yeah, gatecruise.com. And you chatted on Dial the Gate a couple of weeks ago with Jonathan from Gate Cruise.
We did.
We're going to have him 1 week from today. At 2 p.m. Pacific time, he's going to be on GateWorld's live stream hangout. We'll talk more about the cruise. So if you're thinking about it, you're not sure if you want to go, come and ask questions to Jonathan next week. And actually, I just heard before we went live that he might have some new announcements for us.
Really? Okay, fantastic. That's very good. All right. Anything else, man? Marsha Middleton asked, can you slip in a pug or two? Yeah, for sure. They had better be doing something like that. Even if it's just a picture of Sharky. We better see Sharky somehow. Or there would be fans who will riot.
Yeah. I mean, what's left for me is speculation. I don't know that we learned a whole lot of new information about the show, like where it's set. Is it in the Milky Way? Is it going to be set on Earth? I'm trying to do all the reading between the lines that we usually do in our speculation. But yeah, I don't know that we got anything concrete. I feel like just the way that Martin's talked in the past about Stargate is us, it's Earth. And spaceships. I'm guessing that might be his default starting point is Earth in the present day.
Okay. Yeah, that's I was excited to hear that that ships were at least being designed or acknowledged in some way. So it stands to reason if it's still us as much as us can be us in that space, then it's cool stuff. We really appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, give us a like. It does make a difference if you leave a comment. Especially about something that you cared for or didn't care for, to stir discussion. That helps with each of these episodes. This is a simulcast, so Darren and I are sharing this show in each of our streams, and we've been delighted in having you. So I myself have got 3 or 4 episodes planned this weekend, including over at Wormhole Extremists. We're going to be showing
what's going on Dial the Gate.
Dial the Gate this weekend. We've got. Let me pull this up here. So tomorrow morning, we're bringing on Robert C. Cooper for a previously recorded interview on Stargate Religion and Ascension called The Great Path. This has been taken from an editorial that that you created out of a piece of an interview that you had with him. And I listened to it again last night in terms of assembling it and everything. And I think that I can definitively say this for both of us and for a lot of fans listening and watching. You will not look at ascended beings the same way after this conversation. Because I think you, Darren, definitely pointed out that we don't really look at them in terms of being free of ego. Like we look at them in terms of, well, they're not taking a moral action here, or they are taking a moral action here. What does that constitute for, and what does that mean for a species or a being that has spent thousands and thousands of years releasing your burden, releasing your ego, and just becoming one with this overmind that you're a part of? And Rob had us reconsider a lot of those opinions, at least certainly me.
Yeah, it was a fascinating
good conversation.
For sure.
Yeah,
I was reminded of back when you and I did the GateWorld audio podcast, we would have some of these kind of abstract, esoteric conversations about metaphysics and religion. And, does a transporter dematerialize your soul? Are you the same person who comes out the other end of a transporter or a Stargate? It's one of those conversations that allows us to really dig into some of the thoughtful side of Stargate. How about that? The way that the show's writers over many, many years elaborated not just on the mythology of Ascension and the ancients, but what it means to be a human being or a person, a creature in the universe.
Yeah, I think that this one's definitely going to have a lot of comments in it for sure. So I'm really proud that we got this one on the record and that we're going to be able to share it with everybody. Mark Savella, visual effects supervisor for Stargate SG-1, Atlantis, and Universe, is joining us at I don't know why I have 10 p.m. there. I'm going to update that to 11. So Rob is going to be joining us at 8 a.m. and then Mark at 10 a.m. Pacific time to discuss the evolving industry and how things have continued to change, and also talk about some of the more impressive effects from the franchise. And then this is one that I've been really looking forward to. I've been building this for about 5 months into the schedule, trying to figure out when it was going to make things work with him. Paul Weber, casting director for SG-1, Atlantis, and Universe. Everyone from Richard Dean Anderson to Ming Na, Joe Flanagan, Jason Momoa, Ben Browder. This is a big deal. So
it's a big one.
We're going to sit down with the guy who cast the leads from the shows. I
think. I mean, obviously the actors get a lot of attention, right? We love their performances.
Oh, for sure.
We love conversations with them. This one is super important. I think it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be an important part of documenting Stargate's production history. But this guy's going to have so many stories to tell. He's going to know, so many bodies and where they're buried. I'm going to be fascinated to see what Paul Weber has to say about his work on the franchise. That's on Saturday as well?
It is Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Yep. And that one will be live, so you can tune in and submit questions for him. Really excited about this. And then the 22nd, Sunday, Master Replica's Ben Robinson is going to come on, and he's going to have a physical prototype of the 0-point module to show off for us. So we get to see him hold one and kind of get some scale to it. So really excited about this weekend. I don't know what I was thinking when I planned it, but it never rains, but it does pour.
Yeah,
so,
it's a whirlwind.
Hey, there you go.
And it's been a lot of work. We did these pre-records with Mohen and Nathan on 2 different days. So this feels like we've been working on this stream all week. But we really appreciate you all being here.
Yes, it meant so much to have all of you. It was a pleasure to sit down and be with you on this again, to get to pull this off, and looking forward to more for sure.
Yeah, let's do it again. I'm really curious how many more months it's going to be before Martin has something else he wants to share with us. He did suggest that when casting starts to happen, it's probably going to be they'll cast somebody and then it'll be announced pretty quickly. So I kind of feel like we're going to start to get casting news over the next several months, kind of in drips and drabs, 1 or 2 at a time, and not. I don't think they'll be able to keep it under the hat to cast 10 people and announce them all at once.
They're pretty pragmatic about this for sure, because I was like, oh my God, I'm on the show. Well, he's on the show, so Yeah. So that's it. That's what I've got, man. Anything else?
Nope, I'm good to go. I apologize. I'm losing my voice. I woke up or I went to bed last night with a serious head cold. So this is all the talking that I'm going to do today.
Well, my tremendous thanks to my moderating team for pulling this off. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Enigma. Thank you, Marcia, Raj. You guys really did yeoman's work for this one. Just means the world to have my production team be a part of this show. And
and over on the GateWorld side, Hellcats, Jeff, Suns and Shadows, Raj is here as well. Lockwatcher's here. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
This is an amazing community. This is an amazing community.
Absolutely.
And I love getting to do all this with you.
We will be in touch very shortly. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you on the other side.